All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the Town of Carmel. Board members' names are in front of you. Town council's with us, Greg Fulchetti and Mike Carnazza, Code Enforcement Officer. The way we operate is we'll hear the cases. We're going to ask everyone to come up to the podium. If you're speaking by yourself, I'd ask you to pull your mask off so you can speak distinctly into the microphone as it's being recorded for record. And if anybody wants to be heard, come up and just, I'm going to swear everybody in who speaks in front of us unless you're an attorney. But if you do want to speak as a matter of public, I'm going to ask you to just sign your name and address on the piece of paper that's on the podium as well. We're down 2 board members, I just mentioned earlier. So we understand if you want to be held over, unfortunately, someone had an emergency at work. So there's the second case. He asked a favor if he can move ahead of number 1, and I asked the applicant number 1. They have no problem with it, so we're going to do that and be out of order. Will you all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, first application is going to be number 2 for Thomas Titlemundo. And this is for variation of section 156-15, seeking permission to construct a detached garage. The property is located at 146 Crane Road, Carmel, New York. Tax map 54.14-1-39. Willie, representing?
I'm representing the owner, yes.
State your name and address for the record,
William
please.
Besharat, 266 Sheer Hill Road, Mahopac, New York, 10541.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you, sir. All right, bring us through it.
Okay, thank you for taking me earlier. I have a conflict with another board. I have to go after this. We are proposing to add a detached garage to this house. The house does not have a garage right now. They have a need for it. And the reason why we're going for it detached, because the only place we can do it is on the right-hand side of the house, and that's where the kitchen window and the living room windows. We put the garage over there, we really have an issue. So we had no choice but to push it away, and also because of the New York State Building Code, the separation, fire separation, the building they have to be 10 feet apart, otherwise they have to become both. So we had to put it where it is. And as a result of that, we end up with the nonconformity with the setbacks. We are providing 7 feet where it's required 15-foot setback, and we need an 8-foot variance. The property as it exists, there's no other place to locate this garage. Number 1, we have to put it at the end of the driveway. Number 2, in the front, there is the septic system. And in the back, regardless where we put it in the back, it still would need a variance. Whether it's a rear yard variance or side yard variance. And again, you don't want to put a garage in the middle of your backyard. There is no other property available for us to purchase and make this variance go away. There is, the houses in the area, they all have garages, so it'll be in conformity with the neighborhood. It doesn't create a hardship on anybody. There's actually existing trees, whatever, between the 2 properties, so there's a buffer already existing.
All right, you spoke to all the neighbors on either side. Anybody have an issue with it?
Yes, the owner, Mr. Tolman, is here. He said he did speak with them.
Okay. Just one question before you come up. The site plan says 11 feet between the house and the garage?
Yes, it has to be more than 10 feet.
It can be 10 or more?
10 or more, yes.
All right,
Under 10
so
feet, you have to have fire
I
separation.
would probably ask you to bring this in to that 10-foot line to minimize the variance. And,
We have
it's
absolutely no problem. We can minimize the variance. That I would like a couple of inches difference, with the thickness of the siding, what have you. We always give ourselves a couple of inches there, but that's no problem. We try to, keep it as close as possible to
No,
the
I get
house.
it, but I mean, our job is to minimize or grant the minimal possible to make it.
May I ask the board to make it 10.5 feet instead of 11, just to give me that additional couple of inches to play with the separation between the siding. The siding usually sticks out 2 inches past the foundation.
Mike, is that judged from the corner of the building or the eave of the roof, or
Face of the siding.
so face to face?
Yeah.
Yes.
One more thing though, Willie. The setback to the property line, you're going to have to do non-combustible if you're going to be inside 10 feet also by state code, correct?
I don't think so. If you are under 5 feet, you have to be, but
Is
if
it
you're
5
above
now?
5 feet.
Okay, that's fine, that's
If you're
why I
under
asked.
5 feet, because the other neighbor has to be over the 5 feet, and that's for the reason to keep them the 10-foot apart.
Keep that in mind, look at the code
I will
before
look
you
at the
start
code.
going through
I'm
into this.
very sure about it, that it's under 5 feet, has to be non-combustible.
Because it's a garage with vehicles, or?
A structure to the
No, any
property line,
structure.
there's a setback, any
Okay.
structure.
Any structure.
All right,
I
well,
will look into that, Mike.
before you issue a building
course,
permit, if this
but I
gets
just-
approved. Okay.
Before he spends a ton of time on it.
You wish to be heard, sir?
No, I just really need it.
Well, if you're going to speak, I got to swear you in. Come on up.
I'm good.
All right. Anybody wish to be heard on this, in the public, on this application?
John, do you just want to amend the application?
Yeah, well, actually, do board members, any comments, questions?
I have no
concerns?
questions.
Julie? Bill?
No question.
You guys good? Yeah. Do you mind, Silvio? Is it over there? I'm just going to have you, we're going to change it to 10.4. What are you looking for?
The new application would be 7.5, 7.5.
John, you want me to approach?
Yes, please.
Yeah, 7.5, 7.5, Wally.
All right, I'll look for a motion to close the hearing on this application.
So moved.
Second. Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
You all, Bill.
All right, back to the first application is, number one, application of the Hamlet of Carmel Associates LLC for an interpretation seeking permission to construction of a multifamily residential development as per plans. The property is located at Stoneleigh Avenue, Carmel, New York, tax map 66.2-58. Good evening. Yes, please.
Thank you.
State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Ken Carney from the Carney Realty Group, 51 Averill Drive, Mahopac, New York.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you, Ken.
Chairman Maxwell, members of the board, Mr. Carnazza, Mr. Volchetti, good evening. Myself and my family are partners on this property with the Castegna Realty Group, a prominent Long Island developer. We purchased this property late 2014, 2015. It was previously approved for 120 two-bedroom senior units. We got the development reapproved, re-granted, and we got the approvals extended several times. Currently, there is a approval on this site for 120 age-restricted, 55 and older multifamily dwellings. What we want to do at this time is utilize 15628 of your code and build between 120 and 150 units of non-age restricted housing. I say 120 to 150. The site plan in front of you indicates 120. The site will hold 150. I did appear in front of the planning board for a preliminary meeting, and there was constructive dialogue back and forth, and what I had originally proposed is 80 units of mixed income housing. Our business is primarily, we started this business over 30 years ago in this town, in a spare bedroom on a house on Mapac Point. We've now grown. We started primarily in the Hudson Valley. We're throughout New York State. We've successfully developed, own, and manage over 1,500 units with another 700 to 800 units currently in the pipeline. We do market rate, but our primary focus is mixed income and affordable housing, different models of affordable housing. We've done significant work in Somers. We've done projects in nearby communities such as East Fishkill, Beacon, New York, we just finished 100 units. Peekskill, New York, we have one project we finished, and we have another 231 units in the planning phase. What we have found is most of the young people in this town and other families don't have diverse housing options. They don't. I've seen so many young people come out of college, or some people don't go to college. They do not have options to live here. There are a significant amount of people from this town and from this county who are living across from our office down here at Avalon and some of our other projects in Peekskill and East Fishkill. So we seek to use 15628 of your code. It's permitted in the R1 zone. We're serviced by water and sewer. There is an access agreement. This site is adjacent to Putnam Hospital Center. Looking at the hospital, it's to the right. There is an access agreement on this road here. Leads up. The water and sewer is to the property line. What we are proposing and what we introduced to the planning board is this group of housing here would be the mixed income affordable units. These two buildings here.
Make sure you use the
would be
microphone.
Market rate. There is a question on the market rate buildings as to the height. That's not before you tonight, and we will resolve that once the zoning issue is resolved. The 80 units of mixed income, we will build for people in Putnam County between 69% of median income. What that means, for a one-bedroom, we're primarily serving people who make between $50,000 and $80,000. For a two-bedroom, between $60,000 and $90,000, and we'll have a limited number of three-bedrooms. That's for families making between $70,000 and $105,000. There is a tremendous demand for this type of housing. We've done it throughout the Hudson Valley. We have a 99.5% occupancy rate and a long waiting list. We develop, we have our own construction company, but more importantly, we manage. We manage everything we do. My son and I run the company, our youngest son, and a little part of every day is spent on management issues. And I think, I've been told by some that that's what separates us from others, our hands-on management style. So we are seeking the interpretation, the 15628 in your code, which allows multifamily housing in the R1 zone on a minimum of 10 acres, up to 150 units. We have 35 acres here. It's a beautiful site. It's a beautiful piece of property. It's the ideal site for this type of development. The need is here. You're very close to the Westchester line. You're very close to the Croton Falls train station. The MTA recently just bought the old St. Joseph's property to make additional parking down there, which makes this even more attractive. Market rate next to mixed income, we've done it. We just completed 100 units in Beacon, where we have 70 units are mixed income. We went anywhere from 50% of median income up to 115% of median income. Then we built a market rate building next door, and it's working extremely well. We're actually getting the highest rents, well, we were getting the highest rents in the city of Beacon. We were getting $2,900 for a two-bedroom and $2,300 for a one-bedroom. The product dictates the tenancy. We build a very high-end product for a very affordable price. So this will not be a subdivision. It'll be built all as one phase. We will build the mixed income and the affordable as one development. I'm here tonight with my colleague, Charles Montalbano. Charlie and I have worked on numerous projects throughout New York State, successful, affordable, and mixed income projects, and Charlie's here tonight to talk about 15628 of your code. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
I can take this off, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chairman Maxwell, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Greg, Mike, I'm pleased to appear before you tonight. As Kenny indicated, my name is Charles Martabano. I'm an attorney. We've worked on many projects together, and this is a project of great importance to us in going forward. So, as he indicated, so we're looking to construct non-age restricted multifamily housing on this site. So it comes into play with respect to section 15628. And I think, by the way, we're all talking about chapter 156, so I'm going to be referring to subsections. It would probably save a lot of time if I didn't each time say, you know, section 156 and just go to the subsections, if that's okay with you. Also, I presented, as you know, a very lengthy submission. I hope you had the opportunity to read it. I hope maybe even you found it interesting. But in any event, it's not my purpose to, hey, we can always hope, right? It's not my purpose to reiterate every single thing that's in there. You can have the opportunity to look at it. Your counsel now will have a chance to look at it as well. It is obviously based on the central issue before us, and that is to say whether section 15628 allows for the construction of non-age restricted multifamily housing because it's in the code and reads that way. And the contrary response is that, well, it's not in the schedule of district regulations. So it's an issue that's an interpretive issue, and you are the board that interprets the code. So the primary focus of my application and my submission was, what are the rules of interpretation that apply to this question that's before the board? And I gave you, I think, 4 Court of Appeals decisions, probably 8 Appellate Division Second Department decisions. What's great about these decisions is that, you know, it's very strange for lawyers ever to agree upon anything. I'm sure we can agree on that, but these are all consistent, that the rules of construction of zoning code are incredibly consistent. They've been that way for decades in New York, and there's a reason for it. The reason is that we all enjoyed rights at common law, where the municipalities could not restrict our properties. When they began to restrict our properties, the legislature said, okay, towns, you can do this, villages, you can do this. But when you do it, you must do it right. And if you make any mistake or there's any ambiguity, that must always be construed in favor of the property owner, because these zoning regulations are in derogation of common law rights of property owners. So the rule of construction is that they have to be strictly construed against the drafter and in favor of the property owner. If there's any ambiguity, it must be construed in favor of the property owner. What's interesting about the decisions, and again, you've got these citations from it, is it's not like it's wishy-washy. It says it must be construed this way, and it shall be construed this way, and ambiguities must be resolved in favor of the property owners. So the way that I look at this question is that we have sections of the code, subsections 15 and 16, which I think Mike relies upon to say, well, it's not in the schedule of district regulations. However, as another subsection, which is 28 that we're talking about, is crystal clear about what it says. And what's interesting about it is the way that it says they're authorized. In other words, it's specific language that specifically authorizes the use in the code. When we look at section or subsection 15 and 16, it's interesting because it doesn't say, it does say they should be in the schedule of district regulations. And if they're not there, they should be excluded. Not prohibited, but excluded. But it doesn't say, notwithstanding any other provision of this code. And I didn't raise that in my submission, but I want to raise it with you because it's very, very important. So you have subsections of the code. This subsections 15 and 16 on the one hand, subsection 28 on the other hand. How do you decide which one? Well, the bottom line is the 15 and 16 does not say that it supersedes any other provision of the code. So when you've got it, I think you've got a clear-cut ambiguity. And what do the rules say regarding ambiguities? They must be resolved in favor of the property owner. And that is our position with respect to that succinct part of the interpretive rule. But there's more in this case, and it's important. I gave you a copy of a memorandum that Pat Cleary, who's your planning consultant, he prepared in November of 2018. And he talked about this precise issue. And what's important about this issue is that if the code is to be construed to say that multifamily housing, and I'm talking about non-age restricted, we do know that in certain sections you can have what the code says might be housing for the elderly or senior citizen housing. As you'll notice from the submission, there's 2 different, you don't really know which one applies because there's a conflict in the code on that. But the bottom line is, going back to when the town upzoned everything in 2002, and required a minimum lot size of 3 acres for a single dwelling unit, it effectively took and eliminated all multifamily housing with a couple of very small exceptions. housing for the elderly or senior citizen housing, we don't know which, that is permitted in certain limited respects, and some along Lake Mayapack, which is already fully developed. So what's the bottom line, and what does your planning consultant say? Well, the bottom line is kind of simple. You have a significant, when I say you, of course, I'm talking about the town, I'm not talking about you individually. You have a significant constitutional problem with respect to your code, because if it effectively prohibits multifamily housing, except in those limited instances that we're talking about, if we cannot have non-age restricted multifamily housing in the town of Carmel, your code is going to be determined to be constitutionally infirm. And you don't have to take my word for it, because you got the word of your planning consultant in a long memorandum in November of 2018, who pointed out the difficulties occasioned by the fact that you upzoned and eliminated multifamily housing. I've done a lot of affordable housing cases over the years, and they really started, believe it or not, in the county of Westchester, back when luxury condominiums were considered, ooh, that's affordable housing, and they weren't wanted in the town of Newcastle. So you had the Berenson decision going back to 1975. You had the Continental decision in North Salem. Again, what was it over? It was over high-end multifamily housing, not your conventional affordable housing. It was about that. And these municipalities, with the town of Cortland, the town of North Salem, the town of Newcastle, Newcastle, they eliminated opportunities or minimized opportunities for multifamily housing, and their codes were found to be unconstitutional. And that's where we are today. This series of cases have gone way beyond that now. Pat was very interested in his memo. He pointed out the situation in the county of Westchester, which, as it turns out, I have a lot of experience with. In Westchester, there was a lawsuit that was brought against the county. And, you know, you talk about some ingenious ways and people come up with lawsuits. What they did there, that lawsuit, is they took a look at the fact that the county of Westchester and a lot of its municipalities had applied for community development block grants from the federal government. There was a little clause in their application that said they had to check off. And the check off said, have you done everything to affirmatively further fair housing? This is way beyond condos. This is way beyond, you know, multifamily housing. This is affirmatively furthering fair housing. If you didn't check the box, you didn't get paid, okay? If you checked the box and someone found out that you didn't do it, you were liable possibly for treble damages under the Federal False Claims Act. That's the lawsuit that was done back in 2009. It was settled. And what it did is it required all constituent municipalities in the county of Westchester to change their codes. A model code was adopted. And what did they have to put in? You couldn't even talk about, oh, we're going to exclude multifamily. That's a non-starter. You had to affirmatively further fair housing, multifamily housing, et cetera. You had to adopt model codes. That is what happened with that just one lawsuit. Pat was very good. He pointed out in the memorandum that you had, when I get at you, I don't mean you, I mean the town, a significant vulnerability to that type of lawsuit. And he's correct. And the fact of the matter is, the situation has only gotten significantly worse. As Pat pointed out in his memo, he said that, look, in 2018, he was concerned that Ben Carson, as Secretary of HUD, was going to really stringently enforce these rules. Well, he didn't. He actually backed off a lot of the rules. But now Marcia Fudge is the new, chairman of HUD, and she is going to significantly enforce these rules. What I'm saying is that the obligation of municipalities to affirmatively further fair housing, whether it's going to be affordable housing in the abstract or whether it's going to be multifamily housing, more and more burdens, more and more scrutiny is going to be brought upon municipalities. So you have, in my opinion, a very, very significant constitutional issue. And I originally planned to read all of Pat's quotes, but I don't really need to do it. They're in the memorandum. You've seen them. He pointed it out, and I'm telling you the situation has only gotten significantly worse as we stand here. So the reason I brought it up is that a case, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a quick bit of water. In 2015, a case came before the Appellate Division Second Division. This is called the Waterways case, and I pointed it out here. Now, what was significant? That was actually argued by someone that I've worked with on a number of cases. But what was involved in that case was constitutional rights or constitutional issues. In that case, it was vested rights in connection with prior legal nonconforming uses, et cetera. But the court in addition to setting forth the standard that I've been telling you, and, must be strictly enforced against the drafter in favor of the property owner, ambiguity resolution in favor of the property owner, went another step further and said, listen, where there's a constitutional issue, the interpretive board or interpretive official needs to construe the ordinance in a manner to save the ordinance, so to speak. In other words, to make it constitutionally viable. And in that case, that the court overturned the zoning board's decision because they said your decision did not save the vitality or the constitutional vitality of that ordinance. So where it is fairly possible to interpret a code to make it constitutional, there's an obligation upon a zoning board or an enforcement official to interpret it in that manner. Well, that's exactly what we're dealing with here. Because if you say, yeah, you're right, it's not permitted anywhere in the town, that's what we think. Forget they're going to construe it in favor of you. It's not going to be permitted. Your code is going to be unconstitutional. Your interpretation does not solve that problem. In fact, it causes that problem. And the question so becomes is it fairly possible? Well, look at the rules of construction and look at what we're dealing with. One section of the code says this, the other section says that. One says, it's not in the list, so it could be excluded. The other says it is specifically permitted provided you meet these conditions. And as Ken pointed out, we are going to meet all of those conditions. So our position is really quite simple. I know that, after writing 20 pages and giving you all these cases and memorandums, it doesn't sound simple, but it really is much simpler because we have a code that, as Mike has pointed out, it's in conflict. And you don't have a section that says, doesn't matter what the rest of the code says, you have code sections that are specifically in conflict with each other. One says it's permitted, one says, maybe it's not. The fact of the matter is, you need to construe that, as I pointed out, in favor of this property owner, but more importantly, if you do not, you're going to say, hey, as our planning consultant pointed out in 2018, if we take the position that non-age restricted multifamily housing is not permitted anywhere in the town, okay, we have got a major constitutional problem where you can actually, in essence, salvage the ordinance. And the funny thing, I pointed out that there's a Court of Appeals case and an Appellate Division Second Department case which talks about what you are, and when I say what you are, the Zoning Board of Appeals is the safety valve, okay? You can make up for not necessarily inadequacies in the code, but when a code effectuates a hardship, you're the safety valve. You make up for that. You grant variances. Where an interpretation can effectuate a hardship such as this, and it's in a construction that we are arguing for is something you can do and also salvages the constitutionality of the ordinance, you are the safety valve for doing that. And that's exactly why we're here before you, because we think, and of course, I'm an advocate. So of course I'm going to tell you, this is an easy question because the rules, it's not like someone's going to come up with a case and says, hey, you know what you said about the rules of construction? That's not valid. No, those are the rules of construction, and they've been that way for decades and decades, and they don't change, and for all the reasons that I told you. I'm going to take a break now to take any questions you have, and then I'll try to sum up if I could.
Okay.
If you have any questions, of course.
Our code is written as it's been written, I believe sometime in the near future, as, the advisory board to the town is adopting a new master plan, so to say, where this would probably be helpful. But currently, we don't have that in play. So unfortunately, we're kind of held to what's in our code now. I just wanted to point that out. But I'll open it up to the board members for any questions or comments.
Yeah. No, Charles, that was a great background and history on what was happening in Westchester back in the 70s and good explanation of maybe something that's coming, it's maybe coming. But we're looking at section 156-28.
Of course.
And
that's what I want you to look at.
yeah, well, that's it. It's sort of cut and dry the way it is.
Yes.
Well,
Well, 156.28 says it's permitted.
if you look at the schedule,
Sure.
While it's omitted in the uses, there is a conditional use that's in there, and it specifically says for 55 and older. If it was if there was an intention there to expand it beyond that, wouldn't both be there? It's not. So my interpretation, and again, I'm only one board member, is it is a restrictive use within a residential zone for 55 and over because it shows up in that conditional use.
Again, you're correct that it shows up in the schedule of use, which
Which
is,
then shows that it wasn't omitted, it's actually there and specifically called out.
no, non-age restricted multifamily housing is not allowed anywhere. Unless, when I say that, if you're taking the position 15628 does not allow it, then it's not allowed anywhere. So,
Well, no, there's a conditional use that's in the schedule of use.
But
That
that's-
only, that restricts it to age restriction only in all the zones. That's what I'm telling you.
No.
It's there, the usage is there.
but does that say, what you're saying there, that therefore, section 15628 does not apply?
No, I'm saying it applies only for 55 and over.
Yeah, see, again, that when you look at Allen versus Adami, the 1975 Court of Appeals case, it talks about the village trying to write something into an interpretation that does not exist in the code. So it doesn't limit.
But it does,
No,
because
but-
it's there
but
in
your-
the conditional use.
But your point, again, this is the whole issue. You're looking at the schedule and saying, okay, the schedule says this. But
Clearly.
the fact of the matter is, non-age restricted, 15628 does not restrict the age of the occupants. It doesn't. It
But
says
there's
there's
no
multifamily housing allowed in the R residential district, provided you meet all these conditions, and not one of those conditions says, and it's got to be 55 and older.
But the conditional use of the zone does. So
And-
my interpretation then says that is the only allowed excuse, the only allowed use. I'm sorry, that's the way, I'm one board member, that's all it is. But that is the way I'm interpreting it. It is, to your point, it's a strict interpretation, but that's for the courts, not for here.
Well, actually, this is for here, okay? The interpretation is for here.
Understood. And my
And again-
interpretation
and
is,
again,
it's
you're-
very restricted.
But again, if you have to follow the rules of interpretation that are binding on your board that I've outlined for you, and they say you have to look at it from the point of view of the constitutional issue that's created, and here you have the two sections that are in conflict, how do you resolve that conflict and resolve the constitutional issue?
How about a use variance? How come you're not in front of me with a use variance? Because then you could show that, right?
You-
And then
but
we
okay,
can grant
because-
use
because
variance.
when you-
But that's relief.
Well, first of all, the use variance presumes it's prohibited. So I'm not.
There you go.
But again, again, then the standard to get a use variance, you know and I know, okay, on a situation like this, is virtually impossible. And again, you go back to the cases that I was talking about, that I outlined, when it talked about the ability for multifamily housing. These cases did not talk about whether these cases were all about whether you allowed multifamily housing as of right. Look at them. Look at what, and
We are, just as restricted to
excuse me,
55 and older.
no, a conditional use was not a use as of right.
Okay.
Okay? Not a use as of right.
Okay.
And that's what this issue is. Again, you're saying that, well, we allow it under these very defined circumstances. And then all the people that we talked about that would come here, the young people that want to, they can't come here?
And I would love for that to happen. I'm just saying in today's code, that's not allowed. In tomorrow's code, it might be,
But-
but today it's not.
But, and again, my position is if you apply those rules of construction that are binding on you, it is allowed. Because you didn't, nothing supersedes and says, hey, by the way, 15628, forget about it. We override. Doesn't say that.
No, but it says it's a conditional use in an R zone.
But again, you're talking about you're again not addressing the constitutional issue. I brought to your attention, and this again is very significant. Okay, your code. Okay, if you interpret it the way in which you're saying we cannot have non-age restricted multifamily housing anywhere in the town of Carmel, what do you think you've done with that code? You've said it's unconstitutional. Go back and or perhaps ask your counsel about what all of these cases that referenced here, what are the propositions they stand for? They stand for if you unduly restrict multifamily housing, and again, that's when they were talking about luxury condos. Now, the impetus is on, are you providing affordable housing? Are you affirmatively doing it? What you're saying here is our code doesn't merely not affirmatively further, okay? My code prohibits it. Well, my God, You have an ability to interpret your code under these rules of construction so as to salvage any constitutional issue. And I know you're one member of the board.
I'm only one.
But, so how, I guess, and again, I'm not being accusatory here, how do you ignore that constitutional issue when you can look at your code and conclude that, yes, okay, it is fairly possible to interpret this manner if I pay attention to, A, the rule of strict construction, B, ambiguity resolution in favor of the property owner, 3, constitutional issue fairly possible.
The ambiguity doesn't exist in my mind, so that's already out the door.
So I'm sorry.
The ambiguity does not exist in my mind. There is no ambiguity here. There
Well,
is none. It's very clear.
So one, okay, so 15628 is just surplus? You want to say that it's surplus, as Pat might have indicated? How do you come up with the fact that you left this in the code for 19 years if it's surplus? It's not surplus. It's probably in there to save the code, okay? So,
If you read it, it refers to zones that don't exist anymore.
well, the R residential zone does exist.
Yeah, but our MFA does
Okay,
not
so if
exist.
you took those zones and took them out of existence, fine. You didn't take the residential zone out of existence.
But it specifically calls out those two specific residential
As
zones.
having certain limitations on them.
Counselor, I'm just one person, but you have not compelled me. I'm sorry, you haven't.
Okay, I've tried, okay?
All right, Julie, do you have any comments, questions? Bill? Nothing. This is interpretation, so we don't open it up to the public, or?
No.
No. Okay.
Shall I sum up then?
Yes, if
Okay,
if you will.
okay. Again, I could repeat everything that's in the submission, but I think that you've heard most of it. I think you understand where exactly we're coming from, okay? I think this issue is incredibly cut and dry. And your point about they may change in the future, we are dealing with the code, as I think someone pointed out, as it exists today. And I think that the interpretation of that code as it exists today, under the rules that I've just laid out for you, and with that constitutional issue, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, so to speak, I think the answer is relatively straightforward, that if you follow those rules of construction, if you are the safety valve for the constitution of the code, under these circumstances, I think it's relatively cut and dry that you should interpret it in such a manner so as to allow this application to go forward under 15628.
Okay.
Anyone say anything? Okay.
All set?
I think so.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on with the agenda.
We don't have to close, right? No, this is not a public hearing.
No, we're not going to close this tonight.
Okay, you're certainly entitled to reserve on it, and you
Yeah.
can vote it at a future meeting. It should be on a,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
the board is going to reserve on it, and they'll vote it at a future meeting, and it'll be on the agenda for the vote.
Okay, so just to clarify, so they're not going to vote tonight?
I think that's what the chairman just said, they weren't going to.
Yeah, I think we're going to reserve on this decision.
Okay.
This evening. I mean, and I'll poll the board members.
I'm fine with reserving for now.
I'm sorry,
I'm fine with reserving for now.
John?
Yeah, I agree.
Julie? Well,
Can I get go home earlier?
if you'd like.
Thank you all for your attention, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time. All right, application number 3, Gomes for variation of section 156-15, seeking permission to retain a shed, construct addition, retain, rebuild deck. The property is located at 23 Hickory Drive, Mahopac, New York, tax map 86.47-1-29. Good evening, folks.
Raul, you can put that up on the thing if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it up there.
Yeah, it's just I want to make sure I have, here, let's do
Yeah, Bill, we have two of them. So I was going to say point one to that one so they can see in the camera. Yeah. All right.
You need that there for the camera, Raul.
Right. They leave that one there for
Yeah,
the camera.
that's picking up.
Yeah. It's your show.
Hey, Dominic, can you, from the camera on my left, can you pick up both images? Can you zoom in on one as you need to?
Can you see those?
Or does it need to be seen from this camera?
It's that camera.
All right, you can switch them out as you're presenting them to us.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Good evening, Mr. Schilling.
For the record, my name is William Schilling, and I represent the applicants, Joe and Philomena Gomez.
Is he going to be speaking? Might as well swear him in, right? State your name and address for the record first. Sorry. Speaking to the microphone?
Raul Matos. I am helping the Gomez to design this addition.
Okay, what's your address?
215 Hilltop Street. Millback.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Swear.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Bill.
That's okay. This property involves 23 Hickory Drive. The property consists of a fifth of an acre, 0.2 acres. It's a very, very small lot in a subdivision with small lots. The house is about 800 square feet. There are 2 bedrooms and 2 closets in the entire house. So there is no real storage potential in the house. There's no living space in the house that my clients are looking for by virtue of this application. The relief requested, if you've been following, we've had some problems with this application. The first submission that I made had dimensions that were wrong. It was a corner lot, and Mike vetoed it and sent it back correctly. And then I submitted a second, and the plans weren't drawn to scale and got kicked back again. And now we're all done, and the second submission is in, and my client calls me one evening after the second submission and says, I've gone through the building department records, and the deck, which was focal to the application 10 years ago, has never gotten a building permit or a CO. So we had to change the application again, make a new submission. I apologize to Mike, and I appreciate your patience in all that, but I think we're good now. We have a revised application before you. It's simple now, really. It's a proposed addition, which is a 5-foot variance approximately. We've got a 9-foot variance for a shed and an 8-foot variance for a deck. The deck and the shed are existing. We're not looking for any further relief on those 2 things. And the house is non-compliant with setback. We're making it a little bit more non-compliant by this addition. I want to remind the board how difficult it is to comply with setback requirements when your property is 0.2 acres. It's virtually impossible. In support of what we're seeking, we submitted an affidavit. We also submitted a memorandum of law, as my prior colleague did, and I'm sure it wasn't as long as his, but hopefully it was understandable. My client purchased in 2001. They have 2 daughters. One daughter currently lives at home. The other one is married and lives locally. They came here because of the school district. They wanted to educate their kids in Mahopac because of the school district, but there were a lot of problems or limitations with the house, which I outlined to you. The very, very small amount of storage and the small amount of living space. So after they're there 10 years, or actually 11 years, they petitioned the zoning board for an application, a proposal, and that included a number of things. It included enclosing a deck. This was on the southerly side now. A dining room. In addition, they were going to put a garage in and a 3 Seasons room. It was a pretty extensive application, and it was denied. And it was denied, I think, in large part because the neighbor to the east, to the rear of the property, wrote a letter concerned that their views would be denied or obstructed by virtue of that. So the application was denied. 10 years later, we're here again, 20 years after their purchase. And we present to you an entirely different, entirely new, and a diminished, downsized application with the project now on the west, in large part behind the house so as not to obstruct the neighbor to the east. It's smaller. It only provides for a garage below and a four-season room on top. The deck isn't being enclosed, there's no dining room. It's simply a four-season room, and it's a garage underneath. And as I said, it's a much smaller project as that which was denied 10 years ago. The biggest difference is the location of where we're putting it. As I said, we're putting it to the west, behind the house, so as not to obstruct the views of the neighbor to the east. I want to point out some things to you, if I may, and that is that, well, if you forgive me for 1 minute. The drawing that Raul proposed, this is for just site projections only. And you can see that the whole easterly side was being developed. Here is the neighbor. Here is the neighbor to the east, or rather here, and you can see that the whole side is potentially blocking the neighbor. A lot of the building is behind, but the neighbor's view were potentially obstructed. So if I could show you again. This is the neighbor's house. This is where the site would be obstructed. And then the orange part here is potential obstruction of this neighbor to this area. And I believe, in large part, that's why it was denied. This shows you what we're doing or hoping for tonight. And again, here is the neighbor's house. This is the amount of obstruction as opposed to the entire side here. So there's a very, very minimal potential for any obstruction of view. And I wanted to show you a photo of the area that I'm talking about. Here is the neighbor's house up here. Here is the deck, which is here. And in between the house and this area here is a pretty solid tree line. And I'm not sure if the tree line was there 10 years ago, but there's just no potential for any obstruction of views by this little protrusion, which my client is extending beyond the roof line. The major part of the development is behind the house.
And is that just the deck, Bill? That orange?
Yeah, this is meant to show, John, that this is for site projection only. I'll show you in my third diagram. This tells you the size. It's only there presented to you for size. This is what was presented 10 years ago.
Right.
This is what's presented this evening. And there's only a small butt out from the roof line that would potentially obstruct if it weren't for the tree line that I've shown you in the photograph.
And the roof line is not going any higher, as I just saw in the drawings, correct? Any higher than what's existing now on the house?
No higher.
So that's what we're showing you. We're showing we made a concerted effort to address the one concern that was expressed 10 years ago. We're putting the building the construction directly behind the building so as not to obstruct views. We've considered every option before us. If we put it on the east in front of the house, it would obstruct the neighbor's view completely. If we put it to the south, we tried, we've already been denied. If we put it to the north, that's where the driveway is. The only potential place, the only way my clients get a little bit of living room and a little bit of storage room is where we're putting it. I want to say, before I get to the criteria for use variance, that This is not a rehearing. This is a different application. You know that in a rehearing, you have to get unanimous votes. This is entirely different. It's 10 years after. It's much smaller. It's about a third of the size of what was proposed earlier. This is a hearing, and it's a new matter for a new decision by this board. If we talk about the balancing test that we know you have to evaluate and employ, we're talking about the need and the desire from my client against any effects or impacts that might involve the neighborhood. And it's a 5-pronged test, as you know. The first one is whether it's substantial. And I say to you, on a .2 piece of property, there's just no way you can comply with the setbacks. We've made every effort to make it so that nobody would be affected. In my mind, it's not substantial given the neighborhood and the size of the neighborhood. There's no environmental conditions that are affected. The neighborhood, which the courts have stated are the most important criteria, will not be changed. And I have 3 letters from neighbors. The neighbor who is on the southerly side and who is impacted, whose side yards are encroached by this building, has wrote a letter in support. So I have 3 letters, and if I could, I'd ask the chairman, they're short, I'd ask them to read them into the record. The one with the star is the neighbor who is immediately to the south.
Dated March 29th, 2021, Michael Andrzejkowski, 14 Shore Drive, Mahopac. Dear members of the board, I, Michael Andrzejkowski, am an immediate neighbor to the Gomes property. They have shown me their plans for an extension. My property adjoins the Gomes property at their rear at my side. The extension would be 10 feet from the property line to my side yard, which borders the west-south rear of the property line. This is to let the board know that the Gomes family have been good neighbors of ours, and we support their application. This is from Doreen Dorland from 20 Hickory Drive, Mahopac. Writing to whom may concern, I'm writing to you with regards of Joe and Philomena Gomes, resident 23 Hickory Drive. I live at 20 Hickory Drive, Mahopac. I have had the pleasure of knowing Joe and Philomena Gomes for 20 years. Joe and Philomena are my neighbors. I've known them in many capacities over the years. They are responsible, dependable, honest, friendly, and wonderful neighbors. They have always kept their property pristine and are committed to keeping their property as such and improving the community. They've made many wonderful improvements to their own home and the neighborhood during the years that I've known them. They're always quick to lend a helping hand. Joe has helped with home improvements on my property and is reliable and trustworthy. I'm running to let you know that I have no issue with them making additional improvements to their home and property that they are planning currently. They're an outstanding asset to the community, wonderful neighbors, and trusted friends. That's Doreen Dorland, 20 Hickory. And finally, Tama Riley from 22 Shore Drive. Dear members of the board, we're neighbors with the Gomes family located at 23 Hickory Drive, and has been brought to our attention of them wanting to add an addition on their home. We've owned our house since 1962, and they've been our neighbors for over 20 years and have no problem at all with them improving their home. Their home and property has always been well cared for throughout the years. Any questions, feel free to contact me, and that's from Tama Riley. I'll enter these into the record.
So if I may just finish up, the neighborhood, which is the most important criteria, is solidly met here. The neighbor who's most affected by it is writing support, and the one that was deemed to be affected last time, we've done everything we can not to obstruct any view that they may have. I talked to you about obviating the need. We've gone to every corner, every side. There's just no other place to put it. And very quickly, self-creation. We've owned it for 20 years. We tried 10 years to go. This is not a self-created hardship. So I just want you in your deliberations to consider the location of the project, the fact that it's been vastly reduced, the fact that measures have been taken not to impact any neighbors, the fact that the neighbor who is impacted would ask you to support this application. I would ask you to consider my client's very, very simple request and need. It is for additional space or extended family coming in to have some room for that and to have some storage that you know assembles over 20 years of living there. So finishing up, my clients are good, solid citizens of Mahopac. They want to stay here. They love their neighborhood. They love their home. And we're hoping that you'll understand their need for a little bit of relief, which we're asking for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Board members, any questions, comments? No. Julie? You gotta have something. Come on, Julie. Silvio?
No questions, Bill.
John?
Looks good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's a nice design, good drawings. I assume you're the architect, right? But let me open it up to the public, if anyone wishes to be heard on this application. Going once, going twice. I'll look for a motion to close the public
So
hearing.
moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night, stay safe. Bottom of the pile. All right, next application is number 4 for Adam Brandt for a variation of section 156-15, a use variance seeking permission to add a second floor to 6 Mechanic Street to accommodate an increase in the family size. Property is located at 6 Mechanic Street, Carmel, New York, tax map 55.14-1-32. Okay. You understand we're only a four-member board this evening, and you need 4 votes to pass. So I understand if you want to hold this over, but if you feel confident, we'll proceed. All right.
I guess we should then.
All right, just pull the mic up to you if you can. That arm should move up, or you can take it off of that and
Okay.
speak into it. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Adam Brandt, 6 Mechanic Street, Carmel.
And raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you. All right, tell us your
Excuse me,
situation.
John.
No.
No.
You said he wanted to go.
Oh, I thought he said he wanted to hold it over. I apologize.
Oh, no.
No, he looked at Carl and said he could go.
You want to consult? You want a couple?
You need 4 votes for yes, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we should move it over then.
Okay, I guess we should hold it over then.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, again, I apologize. I apologize for, we knew we were one board member down, but we didn't know that the second member would not be able to make it with an emergency at work, so I'll look for a motion to close, hold this matter over.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, Carl.
Okay, sorry, guys. All right, next application, number 5, Jeff Farrell, for a variation of section 156-15, seeking permission to build an addition. Property is located at 7 Friendly Road, Mahopac, New York.
20.
Tax map 85.12-2-2.
20
Good
Friendly Road, sir.
It says 20 on the application.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah, did I not say that?
I'm sorry, I thought you said 7.
No, no.
Oh, sorry.
All right, name and address for the record,
Jeff Farrell, 20 Friendly Road.
and raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so
I
help
do.
you God. All right, thank you. Bring us through what you're looking to do here.
So we're looking to do an addition on the left-hand side of the house. It's about a 22-foot addition, and we're requesting a 5-foot variance with a 15-foot setback.
Okay, there's no additional property you can buy to bring it into conformance?
Excuse me?
There's no additional property you can purchase to bring it into conformance?
Not that I'm aware of.
Correct. It looks like you're landlocked over there anyway. Where's, you can't go in the back of the house? Is that where your septic is?
The septic's actually on the opposite side of the house. The other side of the house doesn't really work for what we're trying to do. It just doesn't create the space that we're looking for.
Okay, you end up blocking views from dining rooms, kitchens, et cetera.
Yes.
if you went in the back.
Yes.
Did you speak to your neighbors?
Yes, I provided a letter that I wrote and had the neighbor sign. And Carmela Verdi at 24 Friendly Road is the most affected by this. She's the neighbor closest to that side.
Okay, and they have no issue, right?
No.
I just saw the letter, I don't know what to do with it.
I have another
saw it
copy
was
here.
signed by like 6 or 7 people, right?
Yeah, 6 or 7 families.
All right, what, families getting bigger?
Yeah, yeah. It's already too big.
Outgrowing yourselves, right?
Yeah. Well, as you know, a lot of these houses are raised ranches, and you're limited for space, especially with storage closets and whatnot,
I
so.
live in one myself, I
There.
get it all too well.
Yes.
All right, board members. We got it from Roseanne, from Dawn anyway, so it's in there, so. Silvio, any questions? No questions. John?
No, it looks good.
Thank you.
Julie?
No questions.
Bill?
No questions.
All right, any input from the public on this application? I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. All right, number 6, Michael Vanderwalker, for a variation of section 156-15, seeking permission to install a 15 by 24 above-ground pool. Property is located at 144 Watermelon Hill Road, Mahopac, New York. Tax map 76.15-1-3-2.
That's correct, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. State your name and address for the record, please.
It's Michael Vanderwalker. Address is 144 Watermelon Hill Road, Mahopac, New York.
And raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, bring us through what you're seeking here.
So if you see on my plan there in the rear right, in the rear left of the house, I have the raised wood deck there. I'm looking to place a pool right alongside of it, parallel with the deck.
All right, yeah, that was a question I had because it wasn't indicated on the site plan. So when you say parallel,
Your raised wood deck
Yes, sir.
to the right of that?
Well, if you're looking
To behind it?
to the left of it, if you're looking at it from the
here's the
front
front of
the
your house.
That's correct, yes.
Are you going to the left of the deck or directly back behind?
Front to back. On the left of the deck.
On the left of the deck?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's what's bringing you into the
Into the
setback
variance
there.
required, correct.
25.4, 26.2 there?
Where is it? It's 10 feet, you're going to be 15 feet off of that, so.
That's correct.
Is there any reason why it has to go there? Can you not bring it in closer? So to minimize the,
I would go back, but that whole area is rock.
yeah, I saw it
It's
the other
substantial
day.
rock, and it's, I've excavated it as much as I
I was gonna
could.
say, it looks like somebody scratched that all out.
I did, yeah. That was me and a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, just so I could make sure that the pool company would be able to do the install, you know?
All right, and it's an above ground, right?
It's an above ground, yeah.
Whitewood.
It didn't seem like there were any houses even close by to that side. It looked like it was screened pretty well.
Yeah, she's about 70 yards away,
Oh, wow,
through the
okay.
woods.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe she's the one who sold the builder my property when I bought the house.
Yeah, it's to the left side of the house, but attached to the deck. But the size of the pool is making it so that it's encroaching into the
It needed the
setback.
25 feet because it's attached to the deck.
Yeah, what size is the pool?
15 by 24, oval.
Yeah, and you can see from the pictures that it's pretty well screened and,
Oh, yeah, no, you can't see any of my neighbors. And they all wish me well with the project as well.
okay. Bill, any questions?
No question. Oh, Bill, I thought you said so.
Sil, Bill?
No question.
Jewel, John?
No.
Do you want to put a deck around that pool?
As long as I can get it up to the deck, I'll just
Just
do
on the one side?
minor. Yeah, I just want it to be, just on that one side, it's fine, yeah.
All right, any input from the public on this application? I'll look for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, second by Bill, I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Good luck.
Appreciate your help.
All right, finally, the last application is Terrence McInerney for a variation of section 156-15, seeking permission to construct a detached garage. Property is located at 48 Tamarack Road, Mahopac, tax map 75.8-2-27. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
All right, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Terrence McInerney. My address is 48 Tamarack Road.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bring us through what you're seeking here.
So, per the variance section 156-15, I am seeking permission for a variance of 5 feet to construct a separate detached garage structure on the property. As you see on the existing survey where the detached garage is, it is at the north side of the property, which is considered the rear. The area to the east is our existing driveway. The area where the garage structure is placed on the survey map is where my wife and I, we park our vehicles. So we wanted to utilize that existing parking area to construct the one-story garage, detached garage.
All right, I'm going to ask the same question as a previous applicant. Is there any reason why it needs to be so close to the property line like that? All right, so your
I'm going to
property
be
today-
encroaching into the septic area, which
What-
is where you see the 65-foot marking from the corner of the house structure
Yeah.
to the east side of the property. That area there is where my existing septic is for 3 bathrooms that it's in the house.
Okay, but I mean, even if you set, it looked like you had room for bringing the garage back this way, could you not come closer this way?
If I go
mean, it might be the
closer
same
that
thing,
way,
be it-
the-
You have to
the-
be careful not to be that 10-foot.
We discussed that already. He's going to do a non-combustible wall on
Yes.
the exterior, the wall facing, so that alleviates the 10-foot requirement.
On the property line side.
That's correct.
I'm talking about between the main house and the garage itself.
It has to be 10 feet or non-combustible.
Well, that's, okay, so my point is, can we move this over a little bit to minimize the amount of variance that you need?
If I do, then I'm going to be encroaching into the septic zone area, where my septic is.
Do you have expansion fields? Are there, or?
I do. And that's where one of the expansion fields is.
Okay. All right, I think we got a bunch of letters from neighbors in favor, from Michelle Paper, 63 Tamarack, John and Valerie Foran, what's her address, 50 Tamarack, and Marie Frankel at 43 Tamarack, all in support. The immediate neighbor that you were joint properties with, is that any of these?
No, she's right here.
Okay. So I'm sure she wants to be heard, I'm assuming.
She's more than welcome.
Well, let me get to that point. Okay. So, all right, I'll open up to the board. Silvio? John?
Yes, Terrence, that's a garage you're proposing to construct.
Yes, sir.
How are you going to access that with a vehicle?
It will be,
If I can't see
looking on
that.
the site survey plan, we have an existing driveway coming off Ridge Road here on the
Okay,
east side.
Ridge Road, that's how you access it. I got
Yes.
you.
And
Not
there's an
Tamarack.
opening right here where it says L 166-45, and that's where the existing gravel dirt driveway is.
And how wide is that?
It's approximately 12 feet wide.
And it's gravel right now? 'Cause
Yes.
I didn't see the property from Ridge Road to that area?
Yes. And eventually, after hopefully we get the permission for the variance to build this garage structure, we will be blacktopping the driveway, but that won't be until after.
I noticed there were a series of evergreen shrubs along that line. Is that on your property?
No, that's my neighbor.
Okay, so we probably have to condition this, that obviously when you go to build something, you're going to be disrupting soil and whatnot. If anything dies, we'll probably have to put a condition that you replace anything.
No, we'll
that-
replace in
that gets
kind.
Damaged. All right, Julie? Bill, any questions?
No.
Comments? All right, any input from the public on this application, ma'am? Wish to be heard? You have to come up, I have to swear you in, and you got to speak to the microphone. State your name and address for the record, please.
Alicia Taylor.
Can you do me a
40
favor? You can pull the mask down, Mr. McInerney, if you want to just step aside for social distancing. I'm sorry. It's being recorded for record,
Yes.
so. State your name and address for the record, I'm sorry.
Alicia Taylor, 44 Tamarack Road.
And raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so
I
help you
do.
God. Okay. What's your question?
If I would like to put garage on my driveway, which is next to our borderline, would I have a problem if I approve what he is proposing?
I can't guarantee anything, but I would suggest that you meet up with Mike Carnazza to go over your potential plans. And
It's just next, like 10 feet from my borderline.
I don't know,
which is
would the
15
setback would
feet
be the
from the
a similar
garage.
setback, right, Mike? It's the same zone?
It depends on the size of your lot.
Half an acre,
Half acre,
.52 or
Hold on.
53, something like that.
I need a second.
Is this pertaining to this application, though? I mean, do you have questions
Yes.
pertaining to this application? Because if
Yes.
not, that's a question you really
you
need to.
or to me?
You'd have to be 15 feet off the side yard.
But there's no problem if I put it parallel, let's say, just for
No, as long
argument's
as it's within the setback, or you'd have to, if you're going to be within the setback, you'd have to come here for a variance.
No, I understand that. For variance, if it's 15 feet, there's no variance, right?
Correct.
Right.
Right, okay.
But there's also a 40-foot front yard setback.
Excuse me?
Yeah, there's setbacks on the front, side, and rear.
No, I'm just
No, I
talking about
understand. I just wanna make sure you
parallel
know.
to this proposal. Otherwise, I have no problem with the application.
Okay. Good garages make good neighbors.
I think so.
All right, anybody else wish to be heard on this application? I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right, good luck.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Minutes from February.
No, we gotta vote. Don't you want to vote on?
Okay, well, we could do the minutes. All right, at this point, there's no further input from the public on any application.
You are tired, John.
It's been a long day.
Jesus.
All right, number one, Hamel the Carmel, we held over. On application number two, Telemundo, do I have a motion?
Motion to grant with the amendments of 7.5-foot variance required and 7.5-foot setback.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, granted. Number three, Gomes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, granted.
Grant's held over.
Number four,
Hold over.
did we,
We held that over.
we did it at that time, right?
Grants was
Okay,
held
it's
over.
There's only 4 people.
Application number five, Jeff Farrell, look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a
Second.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, number six, Vander Walker, motion.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
That's granted. And number seven, McInerney.
Motion
Motion
to
to approve.
approve with the condition that any disturbance to the neighbor is rectified. Cannot disturb neighbor's
No,
property.
you can't. There's no need to condition.
There's no need to
that.
condition it?
They
Okay.
can't go on the neighbor's
I
property,
think the
period.
condition
Was
was
about
to
the-
be if we, in the construction mode, destroy some of the
Yeah, but he's saying
landscaping
we
or
can't do it.
evergreen.
All right, so then,
No?
I withdraw the motion, and I'm just saying, motion to grant.
Cut a root.
Yeah. Motion to grant, right, Greg?
Okay.
Okay. Motion to grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, granted. You guys are good to go. All right, minutes from February 25th, 2021. I'll look for a motion to accept the minutes.
Accept minutes. So moved.
All right, motion made by John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. We'll see you next month. Thanks, Dominic. Good night, everyone. What?